This is Zilog and Moto, your weekly look at the 8 and 16-bit world of Sega. If this is your first visit to the channel, welcome, and I'm glad you're here. Hopefully you'll enjoy the next 20 minutes or so as I take a good hard look at the Ninja for the Sega Master System, or the Mark III if you happen to have the Japanese model. The main mission I have with Zilog and Moto is to review each and every English language release for the Master System, Genesis, Sega CD, and 32X. Now, Sega aficionados will be quick to call out something here, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, but the 8-bit realm of Sega technically expands beyond just the Master System / Mark III. Sega's first official console was an item called the SG-1000, which was released exclusively in Asia and Oceanic regions in mid-1983. I don't plan to cover the SG-1000 on the channel due to the fact that it was never released in the United States, but who knows, maybe I'll add that catalog at some point. It is only about 70 titles, if you can find them. Why am I wasting time mentioning a console that's not part of the channel currently? Well, that's because today's game, the Ninja, also made a previous appearance on the SG-1000. Sort of. Let's go back in time a bit. In the last review of Season 1, Episode 47, I reviewed Choplifter for the Master System, which coincidentally also had a version appear on the SG-1000. Choplifter originated in the arcades on the System 1 arcade board platform, which was more in line with the Zilog Z80 hardware at the center of the Master System, making for a much more manageable port of the arcade game. The Ninja also originated as a game on that System 1 arcade board, except it wasn't the Ninja. It was instead a game called Ninja Princess, which made its debut in the arcades in March of 1985 before being ported to the SG-1000 and the MSX as is. Ninja Princess did well, but Sega decided to release an updated version of the arcade board that changed your character from a female to a male, along with rearranging a few other things in the game. I'm not real sure why Sega did this, but my guess is they felt like at the time a game with a male hero would do better in the United States, similar to how in the original Metroid Samus isn't openly referred to as a woman. Regardless, this rearranged version of Ninja Princess was called Ninja Princess 1 Mega Band Ninja, or Sega Ninja, and it's this version that today's game, The Ninja, comes from. The Ninja in Master System form was released in all regions, and specifically the US version arrived in December of 1986 for the Master System's first Christmas season. So what is the Ninja? Well, regardless of whether you're talking about the original Ninja Princess or the remix game for the Master System, the Ninja is a 3/4 top-down action game that actually shares a lot of elements with vertical shooters. In the Master System version, you control a character named Kazemaru, who is on a mission to free the land from the clutches of the evil Gyokuro and free the princess, who has transitioned from hero to prisoner in a move sure to enrage certain people on the internet in 2021. On the way to rescue the princess and finish off Gyokuro once and for all, you only have an unlimited supply of ninja darts and your agility and wits to fend off waves of other ninjas and animals with bad intentions. How does the Master System handle a port of the arcade game? And is the Ninja something that works on a console instead of an arcade cabinet? And do the game designers at Sega that decided to replace a female hero with a male hero deserve to be burned at the stake and cancelled? Well, we'll look at some of these questions in a minute, but first, the customary Zilog and Moto closer look at the physical package.
And here is the Ninja for the Master System, and specifically this is the US release. As was usual at the time, the American and European version look more or less the same on the front, and the only way to tell the difference is by looking at the back, which we'll get to in a minute. And here's the point in the video where I do my usual rant about how terrible the Western cover art is. I mean, just look at this. The title is fine, with the standard blue block font at the top, and then below the Mega Cartridge label, letting you know that the Ninja is a 1 megabit title. Also, I figured I'd point out that this was such an early release that Sega hadn't yet started putting the label in the upper corner about what type of game it was. But this art, I mean, come on. This looks like a kindergartner drew it. I'm not joking. And it's not even a picture of the main character. This is just a drawing of one of the common ninjas you have to fight in the game. By comparison, this is the Japanese cover, which, while it isn't the greatest cover I've ever seen, it's at least a lot more appealing, and features Kazemaru leaping into action in effort to rescue the princess from Gyokoru, a sickle-armed ninja, and mini-boss Ninuko. If you presented these two packages to a kid in the 80s, I can guarantee you that they would pick the Japanese cover 100 times out of 100. But let's move on. This copy of the Ninja is in okay shape. The hang tab is still intact at the top of the box, and the inner cover doesn't suffer from any water damage or sun bleaching. Unfortunately, there are a few puncture marks, and then of course, the unmissable chunk from the outer plastic cover that's missing. I have no idea how this could even occur. It looks like someone took a bite out of it, exposing the inner cover. I'll definitely be replacing this with a better case at some point. I've just got to make a note to keep an eye out for it once conventions resume. Flipping over the back, and there's the standard early Master System format of 2 screenshots at the top, followed by a few lines of flavor text down below. Based on the flavor text, it's easy to see that you have an American copy or a European one, as the European one has the same 2 screenshots at the top, but down below the text has been rewritten and instead features English, German, French, Spanish, and Italian. The screenshots at the top are okay, given the time period, but I think they could have done better on the left one, as it's a bit hard to tell what's going on, plus it looks particularly washed out. Opening up the box, and the first thing I want to mention is that normally I skip over the cartridge because they're almost always in good shape, but this one in particular has the previous owner's name, Eric Bolf, carved into the top. Yeah, if I wasn't already going to upgrade this copy, this seals it. Although I guess at least they did that instead of writing on the label. This is another one of those Master System games where I somehow messed up and got 2 copies of the manual. This particular copy is in really good shape, so I'm happy about that at least. The manual itself is solid, it's got a little length to it, especially for a relatively simple game, and has tons of included artwork for the various characters you'll run into in the game, and a rundown of the 13 different levels in the game along with a few screenshots, and the traditional Sega high score table at the end of the manual. Okay, that's the package, at least for now until I upgrade it. Let's get beyond the superficial and see if the Ninja is an exciting arcade port that lives up to its System 1 origins, or if it's just another frustrating action game that was trying to capitalize on the popularity of martial arts in the mid to late 80s. Okay, so where do I start with the Ninja? I guess it would be good to compare it to the original arcade game first, and see how it stacks up. As I mentioned earlier, the System 1 arcade board is based on the same main processor that's in the Master System, the Zilog Z80. So in theory, the Master System should be able to get close to replicating the arcade original, much like we saw previously with Choplifter. However, unfortunately I'd say the Ninja is a bit further off the original than Choplifter was. But this isn't necessarily a case of not enough horsepower, as much as Sega was trying to simply cram too much into a tiny 1 megabit cartridge. I did some research, and the original Ninja Princess weighs in at about 1.3 to 1.4 megabits. And you might think, oh, well, that's not that much difference. But I think sometimes in the days where multiple terabytes of storage aren't uncommon in console storage, that it skews what we think about as a lot of space. Well, let's think about that in percentages. From a base level, Ninja Princess has 31% more storage than the Ninja. And that's assuming that the game code for the Ninja fills up the 1 megabit allotted to the cartridge completely. It's possible there's some unused storage there. Give that over 30% difference between the ROM allotments, there's a lot of extra room for graphics details that simply wasn't able to make the transition, because there was no room for it. Which is a shame, because I think the Master System was completely able to make a close replication of the arcade original, but due to Sega's attempt to keep costs down, corners had to be cut on the cartridge design, an unfortunate reality of releasing a video game in 1986. So, having said all that, at least from a graphics perspective, the Ninja is definitely a step down from the arcade original. But, as I've said many times on this channel, graphics are not everything. Once you step beyond just how the game looks, the rest of the game pretty much falls in line with what you would expect from the arcade machine. The game is still a top-down affair, with a 3/4 view, and your mission is still to make your way through 13 possible levels in search for 5 green scrolls, which will open the path to the final boss, Gyokuro. The levels are all similar to the arcade version, along with the enemies as well, so if you want to play Ninja Princess / Sega Ninja at home in the early days of the Master System, things could have been far, far worse. Having said that, would you want to play the Ninja at home? Or in the arcades for that matter? Well, let's get into the game itself. The Ninja is a pretty unique title. About the closest thing I can compare it to off the top of my head would be Commando or Ikari Warriors, as they both feature that same top-down 3/4 viewpoint, and they both focus on levels that move vertically, as you move your character from the bottom of the screen to the top, fighting various enemies as you go. So if you enjoy that style of game, the vertically based 2D run and gun, there's a good chance you will like the Ninja, even if it's a bit different from those other titles. How is it different? Well, the Ninja is similar in concept, but just as an aside, the original arcade machine actually predates Commando or Ikari Warriors, so it's more accurate to say that Commando and Ikari Warriors are like the Ninja, rather than the other way around. However, what makes the Ninja stand out from those other titles are a few key differences that make it unique. First, as I mentioned, the genre for all these titles is known as run and gun. Run and gun applies to lots of different screen layouts and can be horizontally based, vertically based, and as technology is advanced, 3D based as well. But the genre is named run and gun because for the vast majority of these games, you are shooting some sort of gun. The Ninja story takes place during the Edo period in Japan around 1630. As a result, there are no guns in the game. Well, except for one caveat, but that would be spoiling things. Instead, your character throws from an unlimited supply of knives. And you might think, guns, knives, what's the difference? They're all still projectiles. And you'd have a point, sort of. In the case of the Ninja, however, since the projectiles are weapons, they can be blocked. So if an enemy throws a star at you, you can intercept it on the way with one of your own, making the game more dynamic and giving you some play options besides just trying to avoid everything thrown at you, as you would in your average run and gun. The Ninja also features a pretty unique control scheme and level design. The majority of the 13 levels in the game have you progressing through the level from the bottom of the screen to the top, as mentioned. However, unlike in many other run and gun games, in these levels, you can go backwards. This is a huge thing for avoiding enemies and fighting bosses, by allowing you to have more room to maneuver and potentially avoid attacks. Many older games don't allow this sort of thing due to needing to replace old information with new information in the memory buffer, so it's very impressive to me that they allowed for this, as it definitely makes the game much more fun and easier to play. The levels that don't feature the basic south-north movement on screen have a nice bit of variety as well. The second level has you moving diagonally up a hill while avoiding boulders, and the fifth level has you traversing logs down a river, slightly reminiscent of Frogger, while still having to take out other ninjas and a boss. Later on, you have to avoid being trampled by horses as you move from right to left, and then fend off enemies as you climb a giant wall. The Ninja definitely keeps you on your toes with level design, and this is a good thing, as I think the base gameplay would probably get very boring otherwise, even with the different backgrounds, layouts, and enemies that you come across as you go. The gameplay in the Ninja comes straight from the arcade machine, just like the rest of the game, and it gives you 3 options to attack the levels. Kazamaru can either fire up towards the top of the screen with one button press, obviously useful for the vertical levels, or fire in whatever direction he is facing with the other button, in a control scheme more resembling other run and gun games from the time. The third option is not an attack as much as it's a defense, as if you hit both buttons at once, Kazamaru will disappear briefly, allowing him to dodge on-screen attacks, which is incredibly useful for boss attacks, or other points in the game where you need a oh shit escape from screwing up and getting in a poor position. It's a very simple thing, but like the ability to move backwards on screen, and having levels that don't just move vertically, the disappear move adds originality and functionality to the game, and ties in with the whole ninja characterization. And getting all these little things right are the difference between having a game that's just an average gaming experience to one that's enjoyable and stands out amongst all the others. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't thrilled with the lack of storage available for the cartridge ROM, and as you can imagine, the reason for that is because in most cases, you can draw a straight line between lack of space and graphics and sound in a game that, well, aren't the best. The original Ninja Princess arcade game admittedly isn't the best looking game in the world. By early 1985 standards, it's fine, but I don't think anyone would say they're blown away by it. The Ninja does a decent job of replicating the arcade game, but it's clear that there's lots of detail it's missing, which is what happens when you have less space available for background textures. For a console game in late 1986, the Ninja looks okay, and I think it's important to judge it by that standard. But it's hard looking at a game and knowing that it could look better, and that the Master System was capable of more. However, one good thing I can say about the Ninja vs. Ninja Princess is that the characters in the Ninja are larger, and if you're going to have characters and backgrounds that are less detailed, it's nice to at least have the trade-off of larger characters, as it gives some of that arcade feel back. The in-game sound in the Ninja isn't anything special either. I wouldn't call it bad per se, but it's a little on the bland side. There are different background themes, and they'll change if you've gotten the Ninja Star power-up or not, or when the boss appears on the screen, but for the most part, they're somewhat repetitive and simple. And this isn't one of the Master System games with the alternative soundtrack that can be played by the optional FM sound unit, so that's not an option to spice things up. The sound effects are similarly minimal and unimpressive. Again, I wouldn't say the Ninja has poor sound, and it doesn't detract from the game at large, it just doesn't do anything to enhance it either. I had a lot of fun playing the Ninja this week for the review, although I admittedly ran out of time to get good enough at the game to beat it before writing the review. But I do think that with enough time, I could easily get there, and that most others could as well, with the difficulty in the Ninja relating more to learning patterns and tips for handling the various levels, versus having to have lightning-fast reaction times, or a bit of luck in being at the right place at the right time. And I like that. There was definitely a steady progression this week of, okay, I've made it to the next level, now what? And adding that to my repertoire. I never felt frustrated by the game, and it really feels like it has a nice learning curve to it that's not overly difficult and keeps you wanting to play just one more game to try and get a little further than the last time. Based on everything I've seen, I feel comfortable with giving the Ninja 3 stars, as it's a solid conversion of the arcade original, and an interesting original game in the early Master System library. I definitely recommend this to Master System fans that enjoy old-school arcade action titles.
Okay, well, that's 2 good games in a row, with the Ninja being a better experience than Rampart was. So things are definitely on an upswing on Zilog and Moto. The Ninja is one of those games like Astro Warrior or Crew Ball that I really had fun playing during the week in preparation for doing the review. And I wish all these games were like that. The arcade version's pretty rare, and when I was writing the script, even Galloping Ghost didn't have it, but of course Doc Mac just screwed me and made me rewrite this section because they just debuted it on the floor today. Thanks, Doc. I will make sure to give it a play next time I'm over there, though. With 2 solid games in a row, I think we've got a crescendo building to next week's episode 100, which I can guarantee before even doing the review, it's going to get a better rating than the Ninja did. Definitely a good time for me to be reviewing these games, and I think I've finally got the foul stench of Winter Olympic Games out of my mouth. Tune in next week when, drumroll, it's finally time for episode 100. Episode 100 is a big accomplishment for me, and due to its personal importance, I picked out this game a long time ago, rather than just waiting for a week or 2 before. If you think about the 8 and 16-bit era of Sega and the consoles that I based this channel around, there's one series of games that really stands out, and its main character is what finally put Sega on the map in the United States and made them a force to be reckoned with. For episode 100, I'm looking at the game that started it all for that character and that changed the 16-bit landscape from that point forward. Remember, wherever you like to play, have fun, and be excellent to each other. Later.